Antakale cha mamiva smaran muktva kalevaram. Connecting with the divine constantly throughout my life. It ain't going to happen at the last minute. So that has been expressed even earlier. In fact, if you see this one stanza that we can all, internalize, the seventh stanza, for example, it says, Tvajat, seventh stanza, right? One second. Abhyasa yoge iktena chetasa nanya gamina. Right? So that means what, you constantly remember me through meditation, through all your activities that you do, constantly on me. So this we talked about, right? So being aware that, this every action that I do, showing that gratitude whenever possible, all of these are means to go do that. So what Gurudev talks about in this particular stanza is to talk about the ways when we leave our body. So this says that, when the spirit leaves the body, there are essentially a few options. There are a few outlets, let's call it that way. Because when we leave the body, right, what he's talking about here is between the eyebrows. What is between the eyebrows is Ajna Chakra. Right? It is one of the higher level chakras. Sahasra Chakra being the highest above that, right? So the Ajna Chakra is a very powerful one. And it says that people who are meditators, people who are contemplators, people who have been in the spiritual life, or people who have a guru, right? All those things, if you add it all up, then they have done a definitely good service, all of that, all the positive dharmic values that they have inculcated in their life, and they followed it. At the time of a natural death that they go through, let's be natural death, the eyebrows, rotate, goes up, and the prana moves from between the eyebrows. This is prana vayu, as they call it, right? We have 5 vayus, right? Prana, apana, udana, samana, vyana. So the prana vayu is always the one that goes from the lower part of the body to the upper part of the body. So that leaves through the top. So this is for those who are evolved people. Now there are few other outlets also that he talks about. One is where, is from the bottom of our body through the anal region. That is called as apana vayu. Apana vayu is one that goes from the top of the body down. It is responsible for all the excretion activities that we undergo every day. So the apana vayu is the devata that enables that to happen. So similarly, as the spirit leaves the body, it is said that the apana vayu takes over for some people, and there is an excretion through the excretory path of the anus. There is an excretion of gas, and people leave the body, the spirit leaves the body. Then there is another one where, for people who are also meditators, etc., there is also, there's also an outlet through the mouth. So, through the mouth, it is said that people leave, let's say, for example, they would gasp at the last minute, whatever, and then mouth would open up, and then that's it. The spirit has left the body. And the last, right, which is from the top of the head, is for yogis. The people who are very evolved, people who have been in the path, people who are, have cleansed themselves completely, right, they leave from the Sahasra Chakra, right, which is the most evolved chakras that is out there. Now, it is said that, again Guruji has said this, that the people who leave through the Sahasra Chakra are people who are evolved. That means they have all gone through some sense of realization even in their living thing. It is not that they go to moksha at the end of after death. They have realized, right? They have realized souls. And so death is always considered, right, even when we talked about this here, it's just a transition from one body to the other. Now, who are the people who transition from one body to the other? Are the people who, right? So we have this gross body, which we are all talking about right now, but surrounding us is the subtle body. Now, the subtle body is where, there are all the impressions, thoughts, etc. carried over. That subtle body is carried over with the spirit, and it takes manifested into a new body, which is where all the impressions get impregnated and you carry on with a new life from there on. So it is just a different body, but essentially your likes, your dislikes, etc., similar, all of them get carried over to that one. Now, for a person who's a yogi, Guruji says, there is nothing like impressions. Person is fully contented. There is no individuality. Individuality means, he has a body, but he's fully surrendered. He knows that he's all being taken care of. Right? So when there are no impressions, the subtle body, there is no impressions that carried over. This person does not necessarily come into another body. In fact, he doesn't. It is a choice of that soul, whenever necessary, to come in the form of a body, to do something for the benefit of the society. You take all the avatars that we know of. It all came with a certain purpose. Right. Similarly, there are also avatars other than the Vishnu avatar that we all know about, even amongst people, amongst the yogis. Right. So these avatars, they come on their own willingness. In fact, to go back, step backwards, when we all die as normal human beings with impressions, etc., the time of death is totally uncertain. On the other hand, yogis can determine the time of that they're leaving the body. Right? Bhishmacharya was one such example that we can relate to, but there are many others, yogis who in their commentaries and other people who have written it, they live on at their own will, exactly as they want. So, on the other hand, normal people who carry certain residue of impressions, etc., it is indeterminate, and that's the reason. So therefore, for yogis, they can do it because they are already evolved, right? It is all the sadhana practices that are talked about in this chapter and will continue in the next are all meant for people like us who want to be cleansed, right, to the maximum extent possible. And that is where all these practices of what has to be done, regularity, all these yoga, knowing what the divinity is all about, all of this understanding, the knowledge is so important. Because the more we know, the more we will, put some effort towards it. And the more towards the end of the life, we can, be chanting Narayana, or we'll be meditating, etc., etc. So the ninth, the 10th stanza therefore is, I would call the end result of all the, activities that we would do in our life, wherein it results in these four outlets through which the prana leaves our body. Now, moving on, if you go to the 11th stanza. The 11th stanza, one of the things that you will notice Krishna always talks about, even though he's a commentator, he's the one who's doing it, he'll just say something very unique, right? He'll say, Veda knowers, he will say rishis or ancient seekers, scholars. He will say, scholars have declared, Bhagavan is imperishable. Why is he saying all of that? Because he's saying, to us, to appeal to us, right? If he's saying it's coming from him, he'll say God is saying, But if it says that, scholars have said this, rishis have said, suddenly, it makes us feel, people like you and I with a body, they are saying something there. Right? That, rishis have said what? Somebody who is, it's declared imperishable, somebody who can keep their senses under control. All of these people can reach me. Right? Now, how to reach that? I'm going to give the roadmap. That is what he talks about. Roadmap, right? This is always, so it is like this, right? If I have to go to a certain place, I don't know much about the destination. Let's say I'm going to a totally new place, right? And that is what, experiencing the divinity is that, you don't know because it can't be described. It cannot be, only indicators are possible. So the only thing that one can do is give some indicators. And then the scriptures, gurus, etc. paves the way for us to reach there. And it is only the person who reaches there can experience it, right? So you cannot therefore say what is going to be the outcome at the end of it, right? We just go on so roadmap here when it's indicated here, it is just to say these are the step-by-step process, or these are the multiple options to reach there, right? Depending on how we can do it. So he says it, he will say it in Pravakshet. So I will say, declare this in brief. Sangrahena. Sangrahena means what? In a brief way I will indicate it. Now, this is going to be there pretty much throughout the chapter, right? All ways and means. And that's going to be talked about. So, the 12th stanza. The word sanyama comes here in this 12th stanza. See the 12th stanza. Sarvadhvari sanyamya. Sanyamya. That's sanyama. What does sanyama means? Controlling. Being able to regulate. Control doesn't mean tying up something. So what controlling what? Sarvadhvarini. Mana. Mano hridi nirudhyacha. Sarvadhvara. Sarvadhvara, if we look at our own body, we have different dwaras, isn't it? If you take all the sense organs, they're all dwaras. My eyes, my ears, my mouth, my nose, my skin, right? And the senses, they are all outlets for us to experience the outside world. They are necessary. By no means God has given us something that is not meant to be used. Of course it has to be used. Now how is it to be used? That's where this word sanyama comes into the picture. How does he say this? By directing the mind, so that it is more in tune with the intellect. It's very, why, mind and intellect are all inside, right? When I say intellect, they're all over the place, but when we say intellect is something built into us, all the knowledge, the awareness of things, etc. is through knowledge. We have created certain awareness about many things. In fact, all the Gita knowledge comes in as intellectual knowledge ultimately. But then the mind has got its own ways to say, I'm going to discard what the intellect says, I'll do what I want, right? And I go outside and use my, senses whichever way I want. So here what Bhagavan is saying and what Vyasa is saying is that, have some say over regulating them. How? By practices. The first one is meditation. This word meditation, which we started in 6th chapter, right, is going to be there, the central piece of, ultimately, what you call passive roadmap to reach him. There's no other way. Meditation again is a roadmap. It is not necessarily the end. Right? Even samadhi, maybe you can say, is a intermediate product. Samadhi is a state of stillness. But in that stillness, of course, there is a few seconds or a few minutes of bliss where we connect with that force and we feel so wonderful. Okay. So, one of the key things that is talked about here is the need for devotion. Right? We all have devotion. There's not a question about that. See, it is devotion that ultimately connects him to us, right? It connects us to the divine, right? Even if I have a devotion towards a particular god or a particular deity, etc., what does it do? Mind turns inside. Even if it, once in a while it goes outside because of smell or because of sound, whatever to outside thing. You're chanting something or you're meditating something or, you're doing a nama japa, whatever else we are doing, right? Whenever we are in devoted, the mind is more turned inside. That's the reason we say, right? Namaha, namaha, namaha. Manaha is always outside. Namaha, when we say, we're going inside. Right? See, Rudram, Chamakam, right? Namaha, namaha is used so many times. It is to constantly tell us, go inside, go inside, go inside. So by devotion, by, using the intellect a lot more. Intellect a lot more means what? Discriminative power, saying no to certain things. Okay, once in a while the mind goes out saying, shut up man, go in. And those are things only we can do, right? The gurus are here to guide us what to do. Gurus are not going to make sure that, my intellect is kept in steady and mind is not going all over the place, etc. Ultimately, it is my effort that is going to pave the way. And the third piece of it that is required is also for desires to be under some sanyama, being under control. Because desires are what make the sense stimuli go out, isn't it? If my desires are kept, in some sanity check, then what happens? The less it will go out, the more it will be inside. What is sense, vasanas or desires are coming down? It means that somewhere my contentment level has gone up. Right? I'm happy with what I am. I'm happy with what I don't have. Right? God has given me enough. I'm happy with this. Right? I'm going through some bad period now. I know it's for a good reason. I'm happy. Still, I'm okay with it. It's coming to terms with where we are at a certain time. Right? All of this. If we go back to Patanjali Yoga Sutras, this word came, right? Pratyahara. What is Pratyahara? Pratyahara is controlling the senses. So this particular stanza talks about, devotion, meditation, using your discriminative power, right? And, somewhere also, all of this in a sense will also help us keeping our contentment level higher and higher and higher, right? If we go and look back at our own lives, I'm sure we can all relate to the fact that, we are more contented than what we were a few years back, right? I'm okay. I was, we were so wanting to look at ourselves in the mirror, this way, that way, fitness, whatever else it might be. Today we are okay with wherever we are. Okay. So this was so roadmap wise, this is the first indicator. Second one, which is talked about in the 13th stanza, is about the importance of the primordial mantra Om. Right? If we see it is Amitye Aksharam Brahma. The Aksharam, that Ekaksharam always means Om. Right? It is the Mula Mantra, right? We talk about. Now it talks about the fact that this is very important, that, being cognizant of the fact that when we chant Om, be aware of the vibrations that are happening in the body, being aware of the vibrations that are happening around you. So he says here that if somebody is able to utter this Om mantra at the time of departure, he reaches me. Now again, this is not going to happen just by at the time of it, unless you've been doing this throughout your life constantly. Correct. Now, so these are two steps, right? If you say from a roadmap perspective. Now, these things, right, Guruji has talked about is the fact that it is not possible for you and I to just, do it by ourselves. This needs guidance. This needs, a trained teacher or a guru to guide us. In fact, it is said that you can't chant Om, for a long time like many other mantras, because it's got so much power. Right? That's the reason we chant Om only 3 times. Now, of course, in the presence of a guru, in the presence of a realized person, you can be guided to do it more. But, on our own, we are not supposed to do certain things. So these practices that we talk about, therefore, right, requires, somebody guiding us. It's not something that I Google on YouTube and I do it, right? I'm not talking only about this, but there's so many other practices, right? Kundalini yoga, do this, etc. There are Google things available all over the place. I personally know of people, a few individuals who went, were doing spiritual shopping. And they went off on a tangent, and their mind just went haywire. They were pretty much like knocked out. The people in the family got worried. They took them to multiple, siddhas, and ultimately they were able to correct that particular person. The lesson that you learn from such things is this is not something to be done on our own. Right? All, these kriya practices, the things that are talked about here, as simple as that may seem, right, it requires a guidance. Then we have to respect that, this needs a diligence, this needs some direction. And it is done based on the mentality of a particular person. Right? Certain minds, cannot handle certain things. So, if you see the roadmap, what were the things, to say it in a nutshell? Controlling the sense organs, right? Being aware of it again through practices, the sanyama that we talked about, and then using the intellect much more diligently so that the mind is not dwelling all over the place, it is going inside. Devotion, all of these are practices, right? Now this looks all a bit complicated. I don't have a guru, I'm not doing all of this. Then, Krishna is now going to get into little bit more easier, ways to do it. That is what comes up in the next couple of stanzas. He also says in the 14th stanza that, I am also easily attainable. Sulabhaha. If you see that word, he says in that second line, right? Tasya aham sulabhaha partha. Partha, Arjuna, I can be easily achieved. For us, it's a what you call music to our ears, right? Krishna has always said it's very difficult all along, and suddenly he says, I'm easily available. I should definitely think about this. But there's always a carrot to this thing, right? So here what does he say? By person who's a ever steadfast yogi. This word ever steadfast is very loaded sentence. Ever steadfast means what? Very, very disciplined in terms of yogic practices. Right? Yogi word itself means something. It doesn't say ever steadfast person. It says ever steadfast yogi. Yogi means what? Somebody who's doing some yogic practices, somebody who understands, upasanas, yogas, etc., has gotten some sense of, being able to control the mind, etc. So somebody who is ever steadfast, very disciplined, does it very diligently, regularly, and for a long time. So 3 things here, right? One is constantly. One is that second part he says, Mam smarati nitshayaha, right? Smarati means what? Remembers me, nitshayaha. You can call it nitshaya as daily or regularly. And this is very similar to what we just said earlier, right? In the 7th stanza, the same thing was talked about. So Krishna always, puts the same thing in different ways so that, what was something that not grasped, it makes you grasp, right? You put it in different flavors. Somewhere, it hits you, right? I have to do this. But I have to remember him daily. Not thinking of Nitya Yuktasya Yoginaha, not thinking about anything else. Now, all of this seems so complicated, isn't it? When we look at not thinking about something else, etc. Swami Chinmayananda gave one beautiful example. He says, you think that, nullifying thoughts should not come, I should only think of him, etc. It's totally impossible in life. Yes, it is possible. Why? When we go to sleep, what happens? Ask ourselves, right? We think sleep just happens like that. Sleep happens only when the thoughts go to zero. If I have thoughts, I'll no way go to sleep. Isn't it? So every night when we go to bed, right? Yes, of course there is a time of the day and the body is, slowly doing its job also. But from a thought perspective, when there's on certain days when your mind is all very perturbed, you don't go to sleep that quickly, right? It takes a lot of time. So you do some chanting, you do whatever else, right? But ultimately all of this is done to what? Is to make sure those other thoughts don't bombard me. Or you do some meditation, whatever. All of this, why do we do that? To go to sleep. So that thoughts are not there, or reduced. So, in a day's time, and if I might have done something exciting, or somebody might be bothered by something that might have happened yesterday or the day before, but all those thoughts come, but somewhere we have a ways and means, right, naturally that we are doing, is to get rid of them, that we go to sleep. So if we are able to do that in sleep, why not in the awakened state? Right? And even in meditation, all the gurus say it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have thoughts. Let the thoughts come, but don't latch on to it. Don't hold on to it. Let it come, it will go on its own. Another thought will come, let it come, it will go. But our job is to constantly become aware that a thought has come. Right? If it comes, just say hi, bye-bye and let it go. So, this is so what he's saying here is that I can be easily achieved by a person who is regular in his practice. It is not that I do chanting or, I do pranayama or whatever for a couple of minutes and say I have to go somewhere. I do it continuously for a period of time. And then continue, and then regularly, right? Regularly is a very important thing. It's not one every other day per my convenience. It is about saying, that's where discipline comes into the question. It's called Dhirka Kala. Dhirka Kala means what? Dhirka Kala, remember, came in Patanjali Yoga Sutra also, by Sage Patanjali. Dhirka Kala, these things should be done for a continuous, regularly period of time. So, having a focus every day that, today I am going to spend this time on this. Absolutely 10 to 10:30 or 9:30 to 10:30 or some time that you designate for this. It is my time. I have to do this. Absolutely nothing comes in the way for this. Right? That mentality of focus, that priority has to come in. So, and the other thing, Ananya Cheta, there's also here a part about loving, doing it lovingly, right? I'm not doing this mechanically. I'm not just closing my eyes or I'm not chanting this in a mechanical way. With a lot of love, with a lot of devotion. Because what happens when today I do it, I do a pranayama or I do a meditation or something with a lot of love, and I see, wow, it feels so nice. Second day I do it, third day automatically the discipline comes in. Third day you see, wow, I feel so good, I should continue this. So the factor of loving, the factor of devotion is so important in all of this, because that helps us. It's God's natural way of saying, you love me, you will come to me. There's no way you're going to go away from me. He's taking us closer to Him, right? He's not going to let you go. The closer and closer to Him, He's going to grab us and, keep us, take us all to His place. So, regularly, with a devotion, discipline, all of these ultimately leads to what? Sulabaha nitya tasyaham sulabaha pata nitya yuktasya yoginaha. We reach there. And finally the 15th verse. Once, people always say, okay, having done, right, what is the guarantee? What will happen to my next birth? So here Krishna talks about this 15th verse. He says, once you have reached me, Mam upetya punarjanma, once you have reached me at the highest level as a yogi, you do not get back into another body. Because everybody loves, right? I mean, we all are so much about, what is the end result? Why should I do this? Why should I do this? Why should I do this, right? So, and why does he say this? He says that, once you have reached the stage of, having attained me, then you do not come back into this next birth. Why is it? See, when we come back into another birth, if you see it from a philosophical angle, because of our individuality. What does individuality means? I, my, this thing, my wants, my desires, my likings, my hatred. It is that I. That I, small I that is there, is the individuality part. Right? Where ego is at play, mind is at play, vasanas, etc. All of them are this. As long as that is at a play, there is no way that another body will not happen. It is always going to happen. But a person, a saint, who has gone through some of these practices that we just talked about in the last few stanzas, right, in the presence of a guru, then you go into the state where you leave the body, there are no impressions that are carried away with you, you merge, and once you merge, you don't come back, you come back only when you want to come back. It's at your will. So, even if that person comes into that world, right, and we see so many gurus around us who come into this world on their own, they are all realized souls. They have a play. They play as though, like each and every one of us, they will interact, etc. There is nothing you will see different between us and them in terms of the body, their traits, their likings, their feelings, the way they talk, etc. But then, deep inside, or they are completely, our souls who have come to do something for the society. They've always come with a very, very high level goal. Transform the nation, transform the people, transform the world. Right? That consciousness is which they have come into this body, right? Which is that is what Krishna is referring to here. Right? Is that once you've come to the state, right, you don't have to come back. No. So, therefore, what is Bhagavan saying here? Krishna saying, once you reach me, I will hold you tight, man. There is no way you're going to leave me. Even if the world is, terrible from all perspectives, even if there are so many, desires that come in front of you, you will not go there. You will enjoy it, but at the same time, you'll still be with me. So he also says here in this verse, 15th verse, that the world is full of ups and downs, right? What we call as pleasure, that, pleasure is very happy, satisfying to all of us. The same thing that gives us pleasure can be a pain. Very next day, very next minute. Right? So therefore, why undergo all of this? So he's giving a conduit for it. Why is Krishna saying all of this? He's saying, world, as you know, definitely, there are some positives. No question about it, but it's also a lot of pain. Dealing with people, dealing with situations, my own limitations, so many things that bother me that I want to get rid of, all of them, you will not have to go through once you've evolved. So that's a guarantee. It's almost like the 15th verse is like a guarantee, right? Once you reach me, there's no way you're going to come back. I think we will stop here today. Thoughts? Yeah, Jairam sir, please go ahead. So Guruji has said this, right? If you have one desire for the higher. Desire for higher. It could be even in worldly terms, right? Desire for myself, my family versus desiring for, I want to build a temple, I want to build an ashram. That is so like that if you go on, then even the desire to, I want to achieve the ultimate, or I want to make sure that, my desire is that I don't miss my practice for the rest of my life. Wonderful desires. And all that Krishna is saying is that once you have that kind of a goal of those desires are not, where it's not like an attachment, right? It is a very, what you call self-fulfilling, and it's a higher level desire that God always blesses us with that, right? It's a problem with all the desires that we don't want are the things to do around my limited circle of influence. That's all. Yeah, please. Yeah, but ultimately, it is said in our scriptures that if everybody ultimately will have to come to me, right? There is no, initially that wanting to be, let's say we say this, right? Sometimes I have the most wonderful husband, I have the most wonderful mother. In my next birth also, I should be with this, right? So we have all these kind of things. So service also comes underneath that same definition, right? I want to be continuing to do this. My hands are very eager to do more and more seva work, etc. Nothing wrong with it. But it's a good thing, no? So he'll be evolved person when he comes next. That's all there is to it. But ultimately, all the scriptures say you have to come to me. There's no way other ways. That's the end goal. Shalini, something you want to say? No, I don't know, sir. Good you shared that. Very nice. Good to hear that. There are so many evolved people around us, right? So it's always wonderful to know. I know in RSS there are many such people, but great to know that. Yeah, thank you. Shalini, something you want to say? Yeah, very true, very true. I can relate to this, right? My father, pretty much in the last 10 days he was there, he was very clear it was going to happen. He didn't say it in many words, but the way he was talking, the way he was asking questions, and one of my other close relatives who was also very bhakta, he was a devotee and he was doing a lot of sadhana practices. He pretty much said, whatever jewelry I'm going to wear, I'm going to take it off because it might be not even 24, 48 hours I'll be leaving. So I just want to relinquish, only my body should go. Nobody has to take anything away from me when I leave this body. So clarity comes, and I've heard this from multiple people that you always get to know, closer to that is going to happen. But exactly when, that we don't know. That's the thing, Shalini, is that, when we talk about all of this in the stanzas, right, as far as death is concerned, at the time of death, it is not about knowing sometime today, right? At the time of death, what state I'm in, right? Am I in a tumultuous mode with a lot of impressions, or I'm chanting Narayana, or I'm meditating, etc. That kshana, that second which happens, right, where the spirit leaves the body, for that to happen only all these things are needed. Yes, you're right that around the time frame, but can I know exactly at this time it's going to happen? So that's the reason they say that, that other, like I was sharing last week, right? There was one very senior lady who was a devotee. She said, I don't know when it's going to happen, but all I want to do is when I leave, and whatever time today and I'm in the hospital, I want to be listening to something. That's all I want to do, because I don't know when it's going to happen. So she told her daughter, you're going to be with me here, just play this constantly, let it happen. Right? And, and so I remember my mother towards the last age, all that people are doing is they were doing, people who are Ram Bhaktas, they would chant Ram Nama, and people who come Shiva Bhaktas, they would do this. All of this was just to, make that soul in a certain state, right? So that soul, that body is listening to these chants at the start, right? Because we don't know what is going to happen. So anyways, just my reflections on some of this. So you were saying something, Shalini? Yeah, so it's hard to say this, right? Yeah. That's all. That's all that stress is here. Yeah, yeah. And that's where, as some of these verses said, right? Win over your intellect, win over your mind with the intellect, right? You have to say no to certain things, you have to say no to certain things. There's no other choice, and only we can do it, right? All these things are tools that are given to us. How I use the tool is up to me, isn't it? Right? So, all right. ஏதாவது சொல்லணுமா பவானிஜி? Yep. Very good. I think that awareness is important, right? Awareness is always the first step, as Guruji has said, right? So, very good. All right. So, good. I think she's muted. Yeah. So, yeah, just to give a brief on this, right? But just exactly a week back, Bhavaniji said, we want to hear the commentary from first chapter onwards again. So we were debating how to do that, and so she suggested let's start with a new group, and that's starting tomorrow evening, Sunday evening, and to just kick it off, or let's say call it an introductory one. I think we've called for 30 minutes today, 3:30 to 4. Just to get to know everybody, because everybody is doing it online, right? They're from all over the place in the country. So I also don't know many of them. I think Bhavaniji knows some of them, etc. So I think what she's saying is that, as you've been through these classes, you can share your perspective of whatever has happened. If that will help, that's what she's saying. So if you can just join even for 5. I'll do it. I'll just send the thing. I'll send you the link. All right. Okay. Your voice is breaking a little bit, yeah. Just few minutes, Shalini, if it is possible. Not a problem. Not compulsory. If you can, that'll be good. Okay. So we'll close for today. Om Purnamada Pur. Your voice is breaking. I am having at least... Shalini, not able to hear you at all. Your voice is cracking. Can you turn off your audio or video and then just say it, please, Shalini? Yeah, better. Yeah, much better. Yeah, 3:30 to, today it's 3:30 to 4, today only half an hour. So, yeah, so maybe after 5-10 minutes if you can join also it'll be good. Because initially we'll just be doing some introductions, right? So maybe after that if you take a few minutes that'll be good. Okay? Alright. Okay. Oh, okay. Alright. Have a good day. Take care. Thank you.